ESPN is saying the Red Sox should be taking a look at Mets Pete Alonso. But what would a trade like that look like, and is it even possible? What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Sea Radio. My name is Corbin, and trade deadline rumors are starting to really heat up here with the Red Sox smack dab in the middle of them. A couple of days ago, ESPN's Jeff Passan released an article where he talked about one trade target for every competitive team. For the Red Sox, it was, quote, if Boston continues this run and goes into July in full command of a playoff spot, the Red Sox should absolutely be placing a call to the Mets to gauge the possibility of getting Alonso. Pete Alonso would maybe be one of the best case scenarios for the Red Sox trade deadline and really sort of look a little bit like Schwarber did in 2021, which would be great for this Red Sox team. However, there are a couple of things that would probably hold the Red Sox back from doing this. So let's break this down. Let's talk about Pete, why he would make sense for this Red Sox team, what could be some of the things that hold the Red Sox back, and what would a trade possibly look like for the Polar Bear. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one. Let's get into it. To me, there's one very obvious reason why ESPN's Jeff Passan pointed the Red Sox in the direction of Pete Alonso, and it has everything to do with power. Moonshots, ding-dongs, big blasts, bombs, right? Home runs. The Red Sox right now, currently with their DH and first base position, aren't getting a whole lot of production overall. In fact, breaking it down by position, in the DH spot this year, the Boston Red Sox have just a 244 average with a 311 on base percentage and a 401 slug, which is good for a 94 OPS plus, about 6% below league average production. Now, it doesn't get much better from their first base position. In fact, it gets a little bit worse. Right now, the Red Sox so far this season have had a production of a 221 average with a 316 on base percentage and a 371 slug, good for a 92 OPS plus, about 8% below league average production. Now, obviously, there is a piece currently on the Boston Red Sox that is going to have a huge hand in hopefully turning those numbers around a bit, and that is Triston Casas, right? We talked about him this week. He's starting to come back and get ready to rejoin this Red Sox team, and obviously that will go a long way in helping the Red Sox sort of get that average much closer or even above league average production, but they could always get a little bit better, and the addition of Pete Alonso would go a whole long way in making this team much more productive at both first base and the DH spot, because over the last 5 seasons, the Polar Bear has been known around Major League Baseball as one of the game's most feared power hitters. During that time between 2019 and 2023, Pete Alonso has had a 251 average with a 342 on base percentage and a 528 slug, good for a 136 OPS plus, about 36% more productive at the plate than the average hitter in Major League Baseball. And during that time span, he also had 192 home runs, which is an average of 38.4 home runs per season. Oh, and he had 111 doubles on top of that as well. This season feels right on par with that pace. He's currently slashing 241 with a 326 on base percentage and a 465 slug, which is good for a 129 OPS plus, about 29% above league average production. And he has 16 home runs with 43 RBIs, which puts him on pace right now to finish the 2024 season with around 33 home runs and 87 RBIs. Honestly, that's a little bit below what he's projected out for the rest of his career, right? He's currently having a bit of a down year compared to what he did in his first 5 seasons. And when your down year is still 29% better than the average hitter in the league, while also having 33 home runs and close to 100 RBIs, you're probably a pretty good hitter. For the Red Sox, this would make a ton of sense right now. Their real only source of power from the right-hand side is Tyler O'Neill and to some degree, Connor Wong. Bringing in a guy like Pete Alonso would make the Red Sox one of the most dynamic lineups in the entire sport, right? Take a look at what this team's lineup would look like having Pete Alonso in that DH spot. It's a really deep lineup. There are a lot of guys here who could absolutely absolutely torch you. And between Tyler O'Neill, Rafael Devers, Triston Casas, and Pete Alonso in the second half, talking about potentially 80 home runs from 4 different people, right? That would be an absolute juggernaut of a middle of a lineup. And of course, this would make a ton of sense for the Boston Red Sox. On top of that, it does a couple of other things for your team. It gives you a bit of versatility between first base and the DH spot. Right now, there really isn't a whole lot. Again, it's going to get a bit more versatile with the return of Triston Casas, but having Pete Alonso in the mix also gives you a backup option at first base and a more full-time DH that, again, would be able to give you a ton of production at the plate. You could flip-flop those guys. You can interlock them with Massa. You could really sort of move your DH position around, which is something the Red Sox had talked about multiple times going into the regular season. So not only would it affect the game at the plate, it would also affect the way the Red Sox go about these baseball games. And on top of that, just completely separate from all of this, wouldn't it be kind of fun to have personality like Triston Casas with Pete Alonso? Now, again, this is going to have nothing to do with whether or not the Red Sox actually go after him, but Triston Casas is one of the game's most unique personalities. Pete Alonso's an extremely unique guy. The two of those guys together would be one of the more interesting first base DH tandems in the entire sport. Just wanted to put that out there because I think it would be pretty fun for fans to watch that happen. Again, it has nothing to do with whether or not the Red Sox would actually go after him. So taking a look at everything we broke it down so far, yeah, it makes absolutely perfect sense why Jeff Passan's saying, hey, Red Sox, this may be a perfect trade for you. However, again, like I said in the intro, there are a couple of things that may be standing in the way of the Red Sox achieving this. Before we get into that though, do me a favor, make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Sox almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. It just helps out a ton, and it was the best way to let me know you're enjoying the content we are putting out. Thank you all very much for taking a second and doing so. Let's get into some roadblocks. The first thing that may be standing in the way of the Red Sox going after a Pete Alonso type player is the fact that Pete's on his last year of arbitration, meaning that going into the 2025 season, he's a completely unrestricted free agent. Now, this might not be the end of the world for the Red Sox if they want to compete in 2024, but from everything we've seen going into the offseason, coming out of the offseason, really even through the 2024 regular season so far this year, the Red Sox aren't playing just for 2024. They're realistically playing for 2025 and beyond. If the Red Sox do end up as buyers at this year's deadline, it may be the case that they solely focus their options on getting a guy in here who's not only going to be a rental piece for the Red Sox, but a guy who could impact this team in 2025 and beyond. And right now, Pete Alonso simply does not do that. So that could be, in my opinion, the first big thing sort of standing in the way of the Red Sox going after a guy like Pete Alonso. Now, the next thing we got to look at is what it would possibly take to get Pete to the Boston Red Sox. Now, hypothetically, according to baseball trade values, it's not going to take a ton to get Pete to this team. Currently, according to them, he's worth about $6.6 million in trade value, which equates for the Boston Red Sox to about this. Now, again, I'm not a trade guru, so this isn't the exact trade that may get Pete here. This is just simply to show you the value that Pete currently has, and it's really not a whole lot. There are definitely some very notable names in this trade, but it's no one that's going to completely change the trajectory of your minor league system, and it could be a possibility the Red Sox go out and do this. Now, the reason I used hypothetically here and the second roadblock for the Boston Red Sox is that this feels a bit unrealistic in terms of the value Pete Alonso actually has attached to him. The first reason for this is because Pete Alonso is currently the face of the New York Mets. Well, he's one of the faces of the New York Mets. He's a big part of not only their team, but their marketing as well, which absolutely has a lot to do with what the Mets place in terms of a value on Pete Alonso's head. The second thing here is that the Mets right now are white hot. They might be the hottest team in Major League Baseball right now. They're having a very similar June to the Boston Red Sox. They are currently 8-2 in their last 10 games, including a sweep of those frauds pretending to be contenders in the Bronx right now, right? They absolutely torched those guys, and right now they're just a game away from a wild card spot. There's a very real possibility that if the Mets keep playing the way they're playing right now, they're going to be in playoff contention. The two of those things combined make Pete Alonso much more valuable in reality than what is being told on baseball trade values, and it also makes him much more difficult to get. You're probably going to have to overpay to get Pete Alonso to the Boston Red Sox, and that value, again, looks something like this. One more time, I'm not a trade guru. This might not even be a trade that's moderately enticing to the New York Mets. This is simply to show you that in order to get Pete to the Boston Red Sox, you're probably going to have to overpay basically double the amount of $1 million in trade value he is worth to get him here. And even if that's enough to get this done, the Mets, who have the most money in Major League Baseball, could sit there and say, you know what? We're close enough to playoff contention. We're not in the mood to sell the face of our franchise. We're going to keep him here and see if we can lock him up before the season ends. So even if the Red Sox are comfortable giving up the value they would have to take to get Pete Alonso to the Red Sox, the Mets might just say, no, you know what? I'm good, right? And then you got to talk about whether or not the Red Sox are comfortable with a trade like this. Over the offseason, Craig Breslow made it pretty public that he's a little bit wary of giving up big pieces in this system and really sort of changing the trajectory a bit of a season just for a short-term gain. He talked a lot about, hey, I have to figure out a balance between giving up future wins and gaining wins right now. And I don't know if for the Red Sox, this is something where they look at it and they say, maybe this is something worth giving up future wins for to win right now. So overall, looking at this, I think it's a really interesting idea from Jeff Passan. I think it makes a lot of sense from a Red Sox perspective as to why someone like Pete Alonso would make sense for this team. I also think it's a smart thing to do if you're the Red Sox and still competitive to look at Pete Alonso as we get closer to the MLB deadline. But given all the factors we just talked about, and given the fact that the Mets might not even be moderately interested in selling at this year's deadline, to me, this doesn't feel super realistic. I would love Pete Alonso on the Boston Red Sox. I just really in my head don't see this happening unless the Red Sox really blow the Mets away. And again, the Red Sox have been a big gun shy when it comes to giving up a lot of their prized prospects, but that's just my opinion. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you think? Do you think it's even possible for the Red Sox to trade for Pete Alonso? What would you give up to get Pete Alonso here? And is this someone you would want to target, or would you prefer the Red Sox go after someone else? Let me know all your thoughts on the possibility of the Red Sox trading for the polar bear in the comment section down below. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Sox almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button as well. Again, it just helps these videos out a ton, and it's the best way to let me know you're enjoying the content we are putting out. Don't forget, going forward, if you want to listen to these episodes instead of watch them, you can always get it in podcast form. Link to Spotify and Apple Podcasts are in the descriptions, or you could simply just head over to your favorite podcasting app and look up Red Seat Radio. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the Red Seats.